Welcome to this week's episode. Hello, Laura. How are you?
Hi, Steph. Looking forward to this week's talk about 2023.
Yes. So last week we unpacked the astrology of 2023, but let's be real. Everyone wants to know, what does it mean for me?
Yeah, clearly.
So we're going to go through the astrology of 2023, the major highlights, and then we're diving into every single rising sign and the major transits that you've got to know about, because 2023 is full of surprises.
Mm-hmm. I haven't felt this excited or this anticipatory energy about a year since I would say 2012.
Ooh, okay.
Well, 2012 was the year I turned 30, but it was also like according to the Mayan calendar, like the end of times. So I
Right.
feel not that this is the end of times, but something is definitely like completing a cycle, if you will.
Oh, yeah. So why don't we talk about
Let's do
what
it.
cycle is ending? Let me share my screen. Okay, so these are the highlights of 2023. We went over this last week, but I think it's important to just do a brief overview of the major transits to look out for. So Saturn will enter Pisces on March 7th. Saturn hasn't been in this part of the zodiac since 1994 through 1996. So this is kind of a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Pluto entering Aquarius. That's going to take place on March 23rd, and it will be like about a 3-month window through June 11th before it retrogrades back into Capricorn. And that is the major cycle that Laura is alluding to. We have not been alive to witness a Pluto in Aquarius. The last time Pluto was in Aquarius was in 1778.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have everyone's favorite Venus retrograde. So retrograde periods are periods of review, revision, reflection, and Venus is our love language. So our relationships, one-on-one contracts that we're in, but as well as our values and finances as well. Venus can have to do with money. So that will be up for review in midsummer. So I don't know how hot girl summer is going to go. It's going to be like profound girl summer, right? And then Jupiter will enter Taurus on May 16th. So Jupiter is the sign of luck, optimism, growth, and abundance, but it also pushes us outside of our comfort zone. And it's a big shift. Jupiter hasn't been in Taurus since 2011. So we'll kind of unpack what does that mean for your sign, depending on which astrological house Jupiter is entering. That's where you can expect to have like fertile soil and a lot of growth in your life. And the final major transit of 2023 is that the nodes of destiny, the North Node and the South Node, are shifting signs. So they're leaving Scorpio and Taurus, and they're entering Libra and Aries. So without further ado, Aries risings, here we come. All right. So when I look at Aries risings, the main transit that stands out to me is that the North Node is going to enter Aries. It's going to be in their sign. The South Node will be in Libra. And this makes me think about relationships, major shifts, changes with people we invest our time with, whether it's love, platonic, business, etc. But there will be major shakeups in terms of, our close connections. What do you think?
Well, Jupiter right now is transiting your first house. And I remember when Jupiter transited my first house, I traveled so much, but not just travel for fun. Well, I'm a Sagittarius rising, so travel is like what I do, but for learning more about myself. So, like having Jupiter transiting your first house and then the North Node, it's like you're expanding your own self concept of you and like who you are. And as a result, that will affect your relationships.
Oh my gosh. I love that, because everything that you learn and you glean from that period of Jupiter being in your first house, that wisdom that you gain, you can also then apply it in a very practical way when Jupiter enters your second house. And Jupiter's, the second house is associated with our resources, and our finances. And so it can be a period of time where, we are more financially stable, or we're getting a little bit more income our way, or it could be a time where we're more indulgent and making like big splash purchases. But if we've learned a lot during Jupiter in our first house, this could be a time where we're kind of like, you know, making money from it, whatever we've learned.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering too if a lot of Aries risings are going to like have to have some restructuring around their current relationships, because after this full moon eclipse, is it a full moon eclipse in Libra, or is that in October?
We have I think it's a solar eclipse in Aries.
It's a solar eclipse in Aries,
Yeah.
in first, and then the October one is the
Libra
one. So I think between those eclipses, and then with the Venus retrograding in the fifth house, it's like you're definitely looking at your relationships, your relationship to money, creativity, even maybe your relationship to your children, because the fifth house talks about children, maybe your magnetism, because Venus is the planet about attraction. So I don't know, it seems like you're going to really, by the end of 2023 to 2024, know who you are at a different level.
Yeah. And I think you hit it on the nail on the head about relationships being a big focus, because the fifth house, Venus retrograde, Venus takes its joy in the fifth house. It loves to be in the fifth house. And that feels like a very basic bitch Venus retrograde. Like if you're in a situationship, you're going to have to make a decision. You know, this is the time to really reevaluate our worth and our value, and what we desire and what we need in our relationships. And with Saturn and Pisces in your 12th house, it's kind of like what's been on, it's what you're not able to access, right? It's your subconscious, what's kind of stirring in the darkness. But Saturn is kind of bringing it to light. So any self-sabotaging patterns, behaviors that you may have had in the past, it's kind of like feels very cleansing in a way.
And then Pluto being in your 11th house for 20 years, you're going to transform your communities, your desires, your wishes. The 11th house is a house of gains. So like, I honestly think that Pluto in the 11th house I have Pluto in the 11th house. It's like a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Big, you know, your benefactors, allies, powerful people of influence could come into your life. And it's a house of hopes and dreams. So you may have some big shifts around what you're working towards in your life.
Yeah. So I pulled a tarot card for each rising sign, and this is a general reading, so don't come at me. But for Aries rising, I got the Princess of Wands, which is the Page of Wands. And I think that really goes along with what we were saying. You know, the Page of Wands, Princess of Wands is all about like a creative spark, having a new vision for yourself. It's a little like creative and romantic. What do you think about the Page of Wands, Princess of Wands?
Yeah, it's exciting energy, and almost like we were talking about with fire sign energy, just wanting to move forward and take action. And yeah, definitely I could see that, especially in related to Pluto entering the 11th, just major shakeups in what you're going after, how you're going after it, and who's going to help you go after it.
Yeah, I don't know if you read Susan Miller, and I don't know if she does like rising sign astrology, or if where people read it through their sun sign, but she said the two luckiest signs of 2023 are Aries and Taurus.
Yeah, Jupes. It makes sense.
Yeah.
So shall we move on to lucky Taurus?
We shall.
Okay. Taurus rising. Take it away, Lauren.
Well, Taurus risings, I think you've had a very active 18 months with the North Node in your first house. So everything that we just talked about with Aries, I feel like they could get some tips from Taurus risings. And I feel like your seventh house with Scorpio being there and the South Node being there, you've again had to really look at your relationships, and maybe you've lost a couple of friendships or one-on-one relationships or even a romantic partner. But I think with Jupiter moving into your first house in May of this year, I don't know. I feel like Jupiter is going to replenish whatever you might have quote unquote lost through these eclipses.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the angles in particular, I've just noticed from journaling along with the planets, like whenever I'm having transits through the angles, those are like points of manifestation. That's when stuff is actually happening. So Taurus risings, you've just had the nodes of destinies occupying your first and seventh house. That's a very active time for life events.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to shift to your 12th and 6th house. And that is more of like a time of rest, learning how to reprioritize your schedule, how to care for yourself. And with Venus retrograde and Leo in the 4th house in the middle of the year, that also feels like tapping into that kind of turning inward, reflecting on the past, reflecting on what you're ready to let go of to create space to moving forward. But it's the period of recognizing what you've got to let go. So I do think Jupiter will be like a bright spotlight. But I do think this is like a year of internal work.
Yeah. And the first house is your body and your like self-concept of yourself. And it's a big deal, like you said, like everything starts at the first house. I think in ancient astrology, they called it the helm. Mm-hmm. And it's like how everything kind of goes from the first house. So the fact that you just had the North Node there, and now you're gonna have Jupiter there, and then Venus is gonna go into your 4th house, which is another angular house, and then Pluto in the 10th. Like that's a big deal.
Yes,
I feel like a lot of Taurus risings are just having massive life changes and shifts.
Yeah. And on top of that, Pluto is going to enter your 10th house, and that is going to be major shakeups and the breakdown. But there will be a rebirth, don't worry. But the breakdown of probably like the current way, or your ambitions, kind of rethinking your ambitions. What is meaningful to you? What type of legacy do you want to leave behind? More profound and thoughtful questions around who you want to be in the world, the mark you want to leave. And Saturn will be in your 11th house. So this is really a time, I think, of like weeding out people in your network, in your community, friends, and recognizing like putting them to the test, like who does stand the test of time, who gives me the equal, is there reciprocity in this relationship, or am I the one who continues to give and give and give?
Yeah. And you've had Uranus transiting your first house for a while now, and I have Uranus in the first house. And I've heard astrologers say that Uranus in the first house is like you're the weirdo. And I think I think a lot of Taurus risings have had to really deconstruct like the Tower moment, who they really are, because it's a fixed earth sign, and maybe you didn't want to change certain things about yourself, but like you said, the nodes of fate were activating your 1st and 7th, and you were kind of like forced to. And so now maybe you're completely different, you see things in a different way, you see yourself in a different way, and now you're able to manifest with this Jupiter moving in May.
Yeah, there's a lot of Jupiter in the first is very fertile for your personal ambitions. And it's like, whatever you want goes, whatever you put your energy toward, this is a time to make it happen. So even though there's a lot of internal work and self-reflection and kind of spending time with your past, this is also the time to get a singular focus and launch yourself forward.
And it makes sense with the tarot card that came out, because we got death.
OMG, Laura, you psychic bitch. I love this.
And I didn't look at any of these. They're all face down. So it's a surprise to me.
Oh, even more fun.
Yeah, because I wanted to be surprised too. And I'd see how on point we were with this. But I mean, death, come on. Like rebirth, death, transformation. And obviously, both Taurus and Scorpios have gone through a massive transformation the last 18 months. Well, it hasn't fully been 18 months yet, but
yeah.
What do you say about the death card?
The death card's my favorite card in the deck.
How did I know you were going to say that?
Love death. There was a month last year where I do a poll every morning, and I literally got it like, I swear, like 15 out of the 30 days. I text the picture to my friend every morning and she's like, what the fuck? But I love the death card. It is not necessarily a real death. It is a beautiful sign of change. And usually, of course, sometimes it comes with some sadness, some loss, a sense of grief, but it's because there's like a twinkling light that's like just emerging in the distance, and something very beautiful is coming. In the Rider-Waite traditional deck, there's like a beautiful scene in the background and like a beautiful white flag that has a rose on it. And yeah, so there's symbolism of promise and hope and all of those things.
Yeah, I do like the death too, because it reminds you that you're going to die eventually, not maybe like in this lifetime alone, but in your life, like constant death and rebirth. I actually might want to get a tattoo, memento mori, which in Latin means remember you're going to die, just to remind yourself that like, in order for you to manifest a version of you that you want to manifest, like parts of you are going to have to die. It's just what it is.
I love that.
Yeah.
So aligned. Gemini risings. Okay, Geminis. So Saturn's entering your 10th house, and that's coming up real quick on March 7th. That is going to be a period of more responsibility in your career. So Saturn has to do with extremes. So you can think of it as two ways. One could be maybe you get a major promotion, you're feeling more responsible, more committed, like to your job or whatever you're working towards. Or it could be a sense of loss, like maybe you are releasing an old path or ambition or hope or goal for your life. And through that process, something else will emerge. And I think that is shown with your 9th and 3rd house transits. So Pluto is going to enter the 9th house. That is going to absolutely shake up your perspective, your worldview, your sense of spirituality, your sense of trust and surrendering in the universe, and your big picture plan. And Venus retrograde in Leo in the 3rd house kind of speaks to starting something new, learning something new, trying to learn a new skill, but then rethinking it, and then finally finding the way forward. So there is this big shift of like learning, and for you guys.
I also think Gemini risings in 2023, that you're going to be forced or invited to be more public facing. Because the North Node will be in your 11th house, Saturn moving into the 10th, Pluto moving into the 9th, Jupiter in the 12th. Like those are all like public houses on the top of your chart, transit wise. Like I don't know what your personal chart looks like. And then Venus in the 3rd house, which is a very busy, very like active house. So I think you're going to first have to work a little bit harder. You're going to have to be out there more. And if you're an introvert, you're going to have to learn how to do self-care so that you could be more outward facing. But I mean, you've gone through Mars in your 1st house for the last like forever.
You can do anything.
You can do anything. I think it's been pushing you that like irritating Martian energy has been like forcing you to like come out of your shell and like share with the world like what you have to say. And maybe it may entail you to learn something new, or like go to school, go back to school in some way. But I really think this is a outward facing year for you.
Mm-hmm. No, that's beautiful. And with Jupiter and Taurus in the 12th, that also kind of aligns, because it can manifest, of course, in many different ways. One of the ways is like needing a lot of rest. Like maybe you're overworking, maybe you're overdoing your schedule. If you do end up being more public facing, Jupiter in the 12th, I hate to say it, could be big enemies. Like maybe that you attract some jealousy of some sort. You're dealing with, just being more, out in the public. And what about the North Node and the South Node and the 11th and the 5th? So the North Node will be in the 11th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the South Node will be in the 5th.
Yeah. I had that transit happen recently, and when it was in the 11th, I think is when I met you, Laura. I met a ton of astrologers. I live in the San Francisco area and haven't met any astrologers in real life or near me. And so really like cultivating community and leaning on your community for support, that might be a big theme too.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And I'm going through the opposite, because Gemini is my opposite sign, and the South Node going through the 5th house. What do you think about that? Like, what could that entail?
So I can give you my example. It was kind of wah-wah, if I'm being honest.
I know, that's why I'm like, my reason is also wah-wah, so that's why I want to hear your like maybe more positive take.
Okay. Well, let's see. I had, on a very like practical level, the 5th house can be associated with children and fertility, but also growth, the growth of, the birth of anything. But for me, the way it manifested was shifting ideas around being a mom and children. So that kind of theme could come up. I also felt like I lost my spark. I felt like I was such a creative person. I am a creative person. Like I have a ton of Leo planets. Not like I paint, not in like traditional ways, but creative in many different ways. And I just felt so, I don't know, deadpan. Like, yeah, like, well, I felt like I lost my spark. I don't know how else to say it. So, but once the South Node left, it came back in a better way.
My answer was going to be very similar. I think you're going to focus less on romantical things and more on your career, and like more on getting your like whatever they call it these days, girl bossing. Because it's also in Libra, and like the 5th house is the most fun and romantic house. And so I think the energy is going to be decreasing there to focus you on your career. And you could leave 2023 like being this like boss bitch.
Yes. That was a time where I was in a very serious job that broke my heart into 7,000 pieces. So that makes total sense. Yes. But yeah, it's definitely a more serious time. That makes sense.
Yeah. But also Venus in Leo in the 3rd, you could maybe be reevaluating your relationships with your siblings, your cousins, even social media and how you show up. Yeah, I think honestly, again, like I think this is more of a career focused year for you.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
The card that I got is the World.
Wrapping up.
So this is completion. It's wholeness. So whatever you are working on with this Mars retrograde might fit into this story of like releasing something, because Mars separates. It goes after its desires though. So
yeah, I think that just really speaks to the current transits that Gemini risings are going through, and to Saturn entering Pisces at the tippy top of their chart. It's like, okay, I can't catch my breath before here we go again. So yeah. All right. Cancer rising, what do they got?
Ooh. Um, yeah, so again, what we were saying about the angular houses, I think that having the North Node in Aries in your 10th and the South Node in the 4th, again, this is a huge major life pivot. I think maybe you'll spend less time focusing on home and family matters and more on your career. Because also the North Node being in Aries, it's like going after your desires, like what you want. Not necessarily what's right for everybody, even though that should always be the case. You should always integrate the other sister sign. But also with Jupiter entering the 11th, it's like you're going after your wishes.
I am currently living through the North Node in my 10th and the South Node in my 4th.
Oh,
and I'll say the North Node in the 10th has been super delicious. Like I've had so many life milestones related to my careers, like wishes fulfilled, goals that I've wanted my whole life, and movement and progress in what I'm doing, you know. The fourth, the South Node in the 4th house, there's been a lot of loss, you know, related to family, and it can be a more challenging time. But it's the duality and being able to hold both of those parts. So like public facing, people may look at you and be like, oh my God, you're thriving. She's doing great. But internally you're sorting through some serious muck. But it's all, you know, that's the way life works. Venus retrograde in the 2nd house also is directly connected to the North Node in the 10th. This is going to be a career focused time. The 2nd house with Venus, a planet that is a signifier for finances and our income, there may be a revision, rethinking the work that we do, our budget, retooling our budget in some way, delays on payments. So please budget accordingly from, you know, July through September. And Pluto's entering the 8th house, which is another financial house. So, and Jupiter is in ancient astrology. I mean, the 11th house in ancient astrology is associated with the income from our career. And to have Jupiter there where it rejoices in the 11th, that's like double, triple whammy of financial blessings. So I think it'll be a good year for that.
Yeah, I went through a Venus retrograde in my 2nd house earlier in 2022, and also themes that came up was like my own self-worth and like how I valued myself and my confidence. And I really feel like Leo is that, like you need to have confidence in yourself to show up for the rest of the world. And
your
Saturn,
dreams.
yes, exactly. And I think Saturn entering Pisces, just throwing it out there, I think that's a good time to go on like some spiritual retreat or something like far away. Because Pisces to me is like spirituality, and Saturn, I know this isn't the signifier of Saturn, but it's like maybe like an institution or like a teacher or an elder who can help you like do some spiritual cleansing. And the 9th house talks about foreign travel. So maybe when Saturn enters there, I mean, it's going to be there for a while, but maybe you'll start getting into that stuff.
Yeah. I think a good way to work with Saturn and Pisces energy in the 9th is to commit to a spiritual practice that feels aligned and to do it consistently, because Saturn wants that dedication and that commitment. And Saturn in your 9th house, the 9th house is your lens, your perspective. It could be kind of a more difficult time, a somber time, you know, maybe you're we all go through periods of depression, but and being able to tap into a spiritual practice could help combat some of that.
But it's in a trine aspect, so I think it's going to be supportive. Like the more you do it, the more it's going to support you and how you feel about yourself.
True. Yeah.
Anything else about Cancer rising?
just that Pluto in the eighth feels very karmic. I don't know if you can get much more karmic than that. But pay attention to power dynamics in all of your relationships, contracts that feel karmic, people entering your life, who you are committing to. And I think it's a really profound time to do your own healing and psychological work and empowerment work, right? We're always healing. It never ends. But yeah, to spend time with your shadow, to spend time with your fears and your anxiety, and to face them, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my mom's a Cancer rising, so I'm curious to see how that's gonna play out for
That was my
20.
husband. We'll see.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna have to trade notes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, so the card that I got for Cancer rising is the King of Wands, the King of
Oh,
Fire.
duh.
Yeah, visionary.
That's very
Confident,
North Node.
very North Node in Aries. Like, shoot for the. I mean, I like the way that. So this is the Santa Muerte tarot, which I love.
I have it too.
Oh, you do? I
Yes,
love
of
this
course.
tarot deck.
Claro que sí.
Yeah, claro que sí. This skeleton is like pointing up, and I think as long as you follow the North Node and listen to your intuition, because you're ruled by the moon, you cannot go wrong. Like, make a vision, envision your future, where you want to be, how it makes you feel, and just like shoot for the stars.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love how these cards are just lining
I
up.
know.
So obviously.
Goodness, obviously.
Leo
This
rising.
is you.
I'm a Leo rising, so let's chat. I feel like some of these technical difficulties here, my Scorpio dog is making some noise. But I feel like some of these transits are like already starting to manifest in different ways. But yeah, Leo rising will be having Saturn entering our eighth house. I am not gonna lie, that's a doozy. Saturn, the eighth house is a place of grief and loss, also like death and taxes, entanglements, what we owe others. Yeah. So contracts, and yeah, so we may have some responsibility around all of those things, kind of. It could be, there could be moments of somberness that enter our lives around that time. One thing, or no, two things that I'm really excited about: Jupiter entering Taurus. That's going to be in our 10th house. That is like prime time. Spotlight is finally on us, Leo risings. We are, born to shine. We can't wait to take up space. That's like dreams coming true. Expansion, fortune, blessings coming to the career sector of your chart. So, and it doesn't have to just be, I never want to just associate the 10th house with career and work. And there's so much more that happens in the 10th house. It's like lifelong dreams and ambitions, and personal goals. If you want to start a family, if you want to publish a book, if you want to, whatever it is, just something fulfilling. And it's kind of a rare moment because Jupiter only enters that part of your chart every 12 years. So that is exciting. Mm-hmm. I am cautiously and painfully optimistic about Venus retrograde in Leo. Mm-hmm. I know it's gonna be super annoying at some points, but this is moving through our first house. So I've been wanting to shave my head for a really long time. Maybe that's when I shave my head. I know. They say not to make major changes to your appearance during Venus retrograde, and that's true. But once Venus moves direct, we might be making some big shakeups in our style, our physical appearance. It's major like makeover vibes. But the retrograde is also happening on our relationship axis. So exes, friends that we've broken up with, people from our past could come around, and conflicts could come up for review, and maybe we mend some of them, and maybe we kick the rest out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense with the South Node in Libra and like the other.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious, like with the North Node in Aries moving through your ninth, are you planning to like learn anything new, travel to foreign lands, or like teach something? Like, are any of those at the top of your mind?
So my MC is in Aries.
Mm.
So this will be a little bit more impactful for me because it's hitting one of my angles. But one thing that I have been thinking about for like literally my entire life, I speak Spanish, but I never speak Spanish on the internet. I am like terrified to speak Spanish on the internet. I know.
¿Por qué?
Yo no sé. And I have been wanting to, I write, I make memes in Spanish, and I've like, you know, for years, I translated all my captions into Spanish, but I want to speak it. I want to, you know, give interviews in Spanish. I want to, you know, talk about astrology in Spanish, do more. And I think that's, you know, we want to be broadcasted and on TV. So, but the ninth house is also foreign land. So I think incorporating, that language as part of my culture is something I'm really excited to do.
That is so on point. Wow. That is like so astrology, like at work right now.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. First of all, that you have the awareness to like understand that and like your own transits.
We'll see how it plays out. Yeah.
Yeah. What about Pluto entering your seventh? How do you feel about that?
Oh, I again am like so Leo posse vibes. I'm like, oh my gosh, like influential people are gonna help me out.
Oh yeah, power players.
It could be, yeah, I'm sure maybe some of that. But I was talking to one of my other astro friends, Maria, and she was like, or like big enemies. And I was like, no, but it makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
So there could be some kind of big conflict maybe that comes up, but I think it's gonna just, I'm a Pluto person, and it's gonna make me reflect more about power dynamics in some way, shape, or form, and shadows and triggers and projections that maybe I haven't been aware of, but it's once it enters that angular house is gonna become more aware.
We talk about Pluto so much on this show, and I think by the end of it, I want to get a Pluto tattoo with you, unless you already have one, because
no, we're doing it.
Oh my gosh. The one thing that I've learned from the Lord of the Underworld is that whatever Pluto like shows you or tries to show you is the thing that you need to like assert your own power. But that normally is in the unconscious, so it's going to be really crunchy.
Yeah.
But it's a 20-year transit, so it'll happen slow.
It'll happen nice and slow. Just how we want it.
One thing I wanted to say about the eighth house, just because like I have my North Node there, it is also the house of the occult and mysteries.
Yeah.
So I think like having Saturn there will maybe make you feel more dedicated to your, not that you're not already, but like occult practices and diving deep into like the mystery schools, you know, the various
oh my gosh, that just, well, I'm giving mediumship readings now, and Saturn is death.
Yes.
You know, and the eighth house is also associated with death. So yeah, you know, becoming more established in that part of my practice, that totally checks out.
And I'm reading post-colonial astrology, which we were talking about, and I first read the Saturn chapter, and Saturn in ancient Babylon was a planet of wealth.
Oh,
so in modern times, we think of Venus and Jupiter as like the planets of wealth, but in ancient times, like pre-Greco-Roman, Saturn was a marker of wealth, but like generational wealth. So Saturn entering your eighth house might be a time where other people, like other elderly or like established people, throw money at you.
Yeah. I'm rolling with that.
So we have the Queen of Swords here for Leo risings. And I
Ooh,
actually love the Queen of Swords. I'm probably like the only one because
yeah.
I am Venus in Aquarius. And I feel like this is like a Venus in Aquarius kind of person. She's like kind of a bad bitch. She doesn't
Mhm.
care what anybody thinks or anybody feels about her. She's like, I know what I want. I have clear mind, clear perception of who I am. And I'm going to communicate in a way that's from my authenticity.
That
I,
feels very connected to the nodes. The
mm-hmm.
in the South node is gonna, we didn't talk about it, but it will be in the third house, and that is the house of communication. So releasing old ways of thinking, old patterns of the way that you talk to yourself, even, and setting stronger boundaries mentally.
Yeah. Because she might be emotionally detached a little bit, but I think like in this case, if you're taking like the highest expression of a Queen of Swords, it's like, okay, but like this is what I want and this is what I believe, and I'm gonna communicate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Godspeed to you.
Thank you. I'll keep you all posted, of course. You know I can't stay quiet. Um, tell the Virgo risings, what do they got in store?
Virgo risings. I find Virgo risings to be the most fascinating group of people, I have to say, because out of all the mutable signs, Virgo risings are the least like I just can't like understand Virgo risings because they're like mutable, but they're like super detail oriented.
Mhm.
But I find it interesting that this year on March 7th, Saturn will move into your seventh house. Now, Saturn moving into the seventh house can mean one of two things. It, like you said, it's extreme, right? It can either be like um, severing from a relationship because Saturn contracts, or you could be getting really serious and you could all of a sudden be like, I want to be in a serious relationship. I want to be in a long-term relationship. And so then you only date people that you see that potential with.
Mhm.
Um, what about you? What do you think?
I got married when Saturn was in my seventh house.
Yes.
So yes, that
Mm-hmm.
it's a time depending on where you are in your dating life. Yeah, it can be a really productive time where you're taking things more seriously, committing to the next level in your relationship. And I do think a lot of what's going on with Virgo risings is about love. We've got Venus retrograde in the 12th house in Leo, and that feels like shedding limiting beliefs around the way they show up in partnership or what they seek in partners.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
um, Pluto entering the sixth house, that's a big, big change
Mm-hmm.
of your daily routine, and maybe part of that is shedding bad habits and limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm. I think if Virgo risings are open to because I also see Virgo risings as like very like blinders on, like they're like those horses with like those blinders and they only focus on one thing versus like the sister sign, which is Pisces, which is like everything is
Mm,
everything. I think if risings can open up their blinders a little bit to maybe there's a different way to do things and like I'm just seeing this because the South Node is transiting the second house, and that's all about releasing limiting beliefs about your worth, yourself, and the ruler of the South Node is going to be in the 12th, as you were saying. So, like, releasing old attachments about your worth and like
mm,
who you think you are worthy of and what you think you are worthy of. I think this time is like cleansing out like old belief systems and the way you used to think about yourself. And
mhm,
then the sixth house is I have the North Node in my sixth house right now, and it's been such a focus on mental health, more
mm,
so than the body, even though it is the body. But when people think about health, because it's a health house, it's literally your mind, your body, your spirit, and your
mhm.
emotions. It's everything. So
Yeah,
I think like Virgo risings are generally into health anyway, but I think this is going to be like a whole overall overhaul about how you see yourself and what
yeah.
you're worthy of.
And I think with Jupiter entering the ninth house, there's some hope and expansion there around what's possible. So like once you're clearing out, once you're releasing and moving through some of these cycles, well, what's on the horizon? What are you looking forward to?
Maybe some Virgo risings will do some traveling.
Yeah.
Or learn something, because you also just had the North Node there. Maybe you had been traveling and now it's like, oh, maybe I want to like move here or something like that. I only know one famous Virgo rising, which is Henry Ford, and he created the 40-hour work week.
Oh my God, stop.
So that's why I have a little like thing against Virgo rising.
Oh my goodness.
But I love you all. I love how like organized you are.
Yeah, the world could not turn without Virgo energy.
No, I really don't think we would be as organized if we didn't have them. Anything else about them before I show the tarot card?
No, what do they got?
Queen of Emotions, Queen of Cups.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I think like we were saying, like leaning more into the unknown, like opening up your mind and your heart a little bit to like unknown possibilities. Maybe you can manifest the love of your life if you traveled, if you broke out of your routine.
Yeah. And Saturn entering the seventh house can be a deepening of relationships as well. So that feels very, Queen of Cups.
Totally. And psychic abilities.
Yes. All right, Libra risings. The South Node's going to be in your first house. The North Node will be in your seventh house. Lucky for you, relationships are a big focus. And I recently just had a solar return where the South Node was conjunct my ascendant. And so that's very similar to like South Node in the first house energy. And I wanted to disappear. I just wanted to shrink myself. And it was a time of like reckoning and like realizing all these parts of myself and beliefs that I had and thoughts I had about the world, and just that I was shedding. It's a period of shedding. And also like recognizing you can't do it all on your own. You don't have to do it all on your own. So really calling in aligned collaborations and learning to ask for help when you need it. I think that will be a major theme.
Yeah. When you just said that, it reminded me of 2020 to 2021. I had the South Node transiting my first house, and I also happened to have Saturn on my moon. And I just felt like I was disappearing. Like I just felt like I didn't want to eat. I didn't have any mojo. I lost all excitement for my life. I was just like, what is the point of this? But the upside is that I got super spiritual. Like I have had some massive spiritual downloads, if you will. My mystical abilities came back because the South Node is super mystical and super karmic.
And they say in the first house, it's especially a soul, like a very, very spiritual soul.
Yes. So I think this year you're going to maybe connect deeper with yourself and your spiritual practices. And Venus actually going retrograde is important for you specifically because Venus is your ruler.
Yes, it's your chart ruler. So anytime Venus does something in the sky, it's going to kind of kick stuff up within you and your personal life. And that summer transit for you is all about your 11th house. The 11th house has to do with community, friendships, organizations that you're part of, and gains, like you said. So could there be some delays or shifts with finances? Maybe, but I think the more important part, the last time Venus was retrograde in Gemini, it was going through my 11th house. And I set boundaries and cut out friends that weren't aligned with me or my values, and who I wanted to be in the world.
I think Venus in the 11th, whether retrograde or not, is like a good thing personally.
Yeah.
I think you can also have friends come back who maybe you lost touch with, who are more aligned now than they were before.
Mm.
But one thing that I want to say about Libra risings, because I do have a couple of friends with Libra risings, is it's like almost like, yes, you're ruled by Venus, but I feel like the caveat to being ruled by a beautiful benefic like Venus is like your soul's urge is to constantly be in partnership, but then like your 7th house is Aries.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
friend has a Libra rising with her moon in Aries in the 7th, and I'm just like, how do you function?
That's an important, yeah, dynamic.
Yeah, so it's like the North Node being in Aries in your partnership house, it might be this lesson, this karmic lesson of you finding your own autonomy in relationships. Because, like, personally, I don't believe two become one. I think we've talked about this.
Yeah.
I believe two become three. I think you and your partner are your separate entities and you don't complete each other. You just want to be together. And so
Yes.
maybe this is like Libra's final lesson that you can do that kind of relationship is possible.
I will say the longest that I was ever single what had to do when the South Node was moving through my first house, and that is when I met Joey eventually towards the end of that transit. And I think with Jupiter entering the 8th and Pluto entering the 5th, those are also some romantic transits. So if you really are doing the work and focusing on what you need and who you want to be in a partnership, and also like cultivating your own joy, being your own source of love and empowerment, there is the potential to meet someone very serious with the North Node in your 7th. And Pluto in the 5th is going to transform and change the way that you interact with pleasure and joy and fun. You may have some big revelations around your own childhood experience, or tapping back into your inner child would be really healing at that time. And Jupiter in the 8th, I just had that lovely transit. It came with a lot of loss, but it came with death. Not saying that is what's going to happen for everyone, but for me personally. But I also had, you can see some inheritances come through, or some financial support in some way as well. People want to invest in what you believe in, and
yeah, and look out for that summertime Venus retrograde, because Venus also rules your 8th house.
Yeah.
And Jupiter will be there. So you might be Jupiter also rules, I want to hear your opinion about this. Jupiter rules, they say, your husband, but I think it's husband and wife and like your marital partner.
Wow.
If you really are serious about having a committed relationship, that could also be a time when you and your partner decide like, we're gonna merge our finances.
I got married when Jupiter was in my 8th.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Because also, like, when you marry somebody, you inherit some of their stuff.
It's a soul contract. You are signing on the line. So that's very 8th housey.
Yeah.
There could be some big shakeups.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, the card that I get for you is the 9 of Pentacles.
Oh,
Venus and Virgo card. I love this card. For me, this is all about like being financially independent. It's like getting your bag and not that you only have to rely on yourself, but like that you can, and that you can do things separate from someone else. Again, I think Libra naturally wants to partner with people and wants to do stuff with people, but knowing that you can do it on your own as well. And when you find that inner worth, that's when you attract the right person.
Yeah, that also feels it brings up the Venus retrograde in the 11th house of like having some dreams or hopes or wishes coming true once Venus turns direct in September.
Yes. I love it. Did we talk about Saturn in the
We
sixth?
didn't talk about Saturn and Pisces. And I was going to say, excuse me, that card also kind of resonates with it. Saturn and Pisces is in the sixth house, is going to speak to like hard work. And in order to get the Nine of Pentacles and to, you know, have all of these luxuries and reap the rewards, you have to put in the hard work. Yeah, I live. I'm trying not to be negative. I live with Saturn in my sixth house, so maybe I'm not the best person to talk about it.
It's gonna make you more serious about your health and like,
Okay.
right? Like it's gonna make you more cognizant maybe of what you put into your body, what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Oh, this is a good angle. Yes.
Right. And like also the sixth house is about pets and coworkers. Maybe, I don't know, like maybe, I don't know. There's so many things that could happen.
I had a coworker from hell during my Saturn in my sixth house. And I also found my little fur babies. And yeah. And like you said, your routine. I'm a big routines person. So when Saturn moves into your sixth, you may really kind of come up with a routine that means something to you.
Discipline.
And it will, yes, and it will help lead you towards your goals.
Yeah. Amazing. Shall we move on?
Yeah. Scorpio rising. Okay, Scorpio rising, you are having some angular action.
Oh, show.
So Venus retrograde will take place in your 10th house. This could be a time where you're reconsidering your career, reconsidering your goals. You may have some public fights with certain people in your life, but it'll be resolved once Venus, you know, goes direct. And Jupiter will be in Taurus in your 7th house. And this is generally a time of luck and fortune in all types of connections. So if you're looking for romance, it could spell out an engagement if that's something you're interested in. If you are looking to collaborate and expand your business, you could be signing some really exciting contracts. But with Jupiter being in the sign of Taurus and Taurus being ruled by Venus, like Laura pointed out earlier, those two transits are going to be connected in the middle of the year. So you may have some rethinking. So think twice before you sign on the dotted line. And Pluto will be entering your 4th house of home, roots, family, and ancestry. This is screaming skeletons in the closet.
Oh, yeah. Family secrets coming out.
Yeah.
I was sorry to interrupt, but even with Aquarius, with all this new technology coming out with like ancestry and stuff, like you might find out that your ancestors were people that maybe did bad shit or maybe good shit. You know, you never know. But I think it's going to transform how we show up now.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard that story with Benedict Cumberbatch.
I was just going to ask you to tell that because you were the one who told me about it.
So Benedict Cumberbatch just found out that his ancestors, he's an actor who played Doctor Strange. His ancestors had like 250 enslaved people. And like, because of that, his family had all this generational wealth, which I was even explaining to my mom, when you have that kind of generational wealth, you can pursue things like acting and like doing your dreams because you have that foundational security.
Yep.
And so now the question that a lot of people are asking is, should his family pay reparations to the enslaved people that his family had? And obviously there's so much polarization about this, but I feel like Pluto in Aquarius in the 4th house is like, oh, my ancestors.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Something like that. I should check his chart to see what his chart is.
Oh yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
But I think that is something in the news right now that absolutely just really relates to that transit. And Saturn entering the 5th house That could be similar to the South Node moving through the fifth house, where maybe you feel like you've lost some of your spark or your joy or your pleasure, but it could also be a time of exploring more sexually, or maybe you are having children, or, you know, some big shift around
Your children.
the topics of children, sexuality, creativity. Either you're getting more committed and dedicating to it and being open-minded about it in new ways, right? With Pisces energy, or you're kind of like shutting it off.
Mm-hmm. I always am curious about like these timing techniques in astrology, because I've heard that Saturn in transiting the fifth house is like a kid leaving home, like going off to college or something, or like distancing yourself somehow, or kids wanting to distance yourself um when Saturn enters your fifth house. And I don't want to scare anybody, because obviously this is just a general reading, but those are kind of the things that I've heard. Or your kids have grown up and they're leaving the house, or they're like becoming more mature or something like that. I'm curious to hear like what you've heard about that.
I've heard that Saturn in the fifth can be a certain type of kink and sexual like experience.
Oh,
That has to do, yeah, with like, you know, dom and sub relationships. And so it could be something like that.
I like that. Let's go with that.
Yeah. And then the North Node and the South Node moving through the 12th and the 6th house. Again, that is going to be all about your schedule, your priorities, and I think reflecting deeper on productivity and how much that's overhyped and been like a standard in our society, versus like you realizing this isn't sustainable. I need to slow down. My rest matters. So really kind of like recalibrating the scales in that way.
Yeah, I think working less in 2023 with the South Node in the sixth house, and prioritizing fun and what, like when I say like prioritizing what you want to do, I feel like some people might take that as being selfish, but I think we do so many things out of obligation and sometimes out of responsibility, obviously, because like we have filial piety, we have like all of these things that we have to do as having roles. But when I say like, because the North Node, again, the North Node is the head of the dragon. It's like almost obsessive energy of like going after something. It's an Aries, which is like, I'm gonna do what I want to do, my desire. And and I think a lot of Scorpio risings, having had the South Node transiting the first house, it's like part of you has died away. And what better sign to represent that than Scorpio? And now it's like, it's your time to like go after what it is that you want. And I think it was you that told me that you thought that you felt like the 12th house was also a place of dreams.
Yeah. Yeah. What card do they get, our dear Scorpios?
Justice.
Oh.
But this Justice, again, it has the what is it, the scythe?
Yeah.
It's a very Saturnian symbol, which is like cutting away what's not necessary. When they use that harvesting tool, it's like they cut away, you know, to harvest, but also when you harvest, you get rid of the stuff that isn't growing and you focus on what is growing.
Yeah, that feels very Saturn in the fifth house too. I love the way that you incorporated the scythe, because that really resonates.
Again, Justice is a Libra card, so you might want to less focus on others and more on yourself.
Okay. Okay, we've got Sagittarius rising. Your Sagittarius rising. What are you excited about?
Well, right now, Jupiter is going through our first house, which is super exciting. And that's going to happen until May. But I'm also excited about Jupiter in Taurus because I feel like, and I know a lot of other Sagittarius risings where it's been kind of like this lull, this like almost like hangman energy of like nothing's really happening. But I think Jupiter moving into Taurus in May, you're just gonna get busy with work. Like you're gonna have to like do a lot of stuff because you're expanding in your work environment. Um, so Jupiter right now is moving through our fifth, and then the North Node will move into the fifth. So it's like a focus on fun, romance. If you've ever wanted to have children, this is like a huge indicator of children and birthing something. I'm also excited about Venus in Leo in the ninth because I plan to, this is how my brain works. I'm like, I'm going to look up my Venus line on astrocartography and go to that place in the summer when Venus is in retrograde in Leo.
Oh, that is so perfect.
Is foreign travel.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah, and I found LA actually is my Venus and Jupiter line, but I'm like, it has to be foreign. So Scotland. I think I'm gonna go to Scotland because it's
Oh,
Venus line. Yeah.
oh, that'll be awesome.
Oh yeah. Outlander. Have you ever watched the show Outlander?
I've seen an episode.
Outlander fantasies. I am a little nervous about Saturn moving into the fourth house because Saturn is, it's rough, especially if you are a 0 to 7 degree Sag rising or Sag placement. This is going to square Saturn this year. And that's a little difficult because angular houses, and the fourth house speaks about home, roots, ancestry, and I don't know how I feel about this, but they say the fourth house is mother and the 10th house is father. I feel like fourth house is both. I think it's family, it's parents.
I think in, you know, nowadays we can just say family, but I was taught that the fourth house is father and the 10th house is mother, because the mother is the one who shows you're pregnant.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
it's obvious. In the fourth house, you're rooted. The radix of the chart is rooted with, you know, you used to have your father's last name. But I think modern astrology does it different. They swap it, but old traditional.
That actually makes sense to me because your mom is always like hovering over you.
Yeah. That's the way Sam Reynolds taught it to me, because I went into his class and I was like, fourth house is mom, Cancer. And he was like, no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I like that. That makes more sense to me.
Yeah. But family stuff, like you said, and you know, paternal figures, maternal figures, it doesn't have to necessarily be mom and dad. Like we all have different definitions of family, but family karma topics are coming up.
And if I could like project my own experience onto this, like for me, Saturn in the fourth house is like moving away from family or like moving homes. But it could also make you more serious, and maybe you want your own family, and maybe you want to be a parent for the first time. So then also Pluto entering Aquarius, I personally like this because it's going to be sextile to the ascendant. But you're going to be transformed in a way of how you communicate, your relationship with your cousins and your siblings, and maybe even how you show up on social, because modern astrology, the third house is social media and media in general. But I actually like this for Sag risings because it's like, it's a long transit, but it's sextile to the ascendant. So I think it won't be as like crunchy as some of the other like fixed signs.
Yeah. And you have the North Node in the fifth. That feels very promising for like exciting projects, reconnecting with your hobbies, reconnecting with your inner child, prioritizing fun in your life.
So Steph and I are obviously like partners in crime with, the stuff that we're doing. And so like being cognizant of my chart and the transits and her transits and her chart, it's like you could kind of start to see, using the law of assumption, like what is possible in your partnerships for the year to come. So I think that's super exciting.
Yeah, I love that. All right, what card do we got?
Another world.
Oh,
So Gemini risings also got the world, which is the sister sign.
yeah. Oh my gosh, duh.
Yeah.
Laura's, for anyone who's never, I just have to plug you, had a session with Laura. She's so fucking magical. The
Thank you.
way, I mean, seriously, like everything about you, but then your card pulls too are just so spot on. I think that that is Saturn in the fourth, no matter what way you cut dice it, there's an ending there. Something will be shifting majorly. It will be a milestone in your life.
Oh yeah. And you know, Steph and I talk about this a lot. Like when you know so much and you're aware of the transits that are coming up, it's like, where does free will and where does like just leaving it up to spirit like come in? And so like I have my IC there, which is conjunct my sun. It's my fourth house. Neptune is there with Saturn there. Like it looks a little dicey with family, specifically parents. But this is the time when like I not that I would ever like tell them that you might die, you know, like
Yeah. Yeah.
but I like
Oh my
but
God.
they trust me, and because so many of my predictions have come true, I'm like, this is the time you need to take care of your health
Mhm.
because these things might happen. So like allowing spirit and divine timing to happen, but also being aware of what's possible because you just never know. And I think you just never know what's going to happen in life. So living every day to the fullest is, again, memento mori. Remember that you're going to die.
So Sag rising, so here for it. Best advice.
Capricorn.
Okay. Cappies. Cappy risings. Um, this one is an interesting one. I think the standout transit for me is the South Node in your 10th house and the North Node in your 4th house. So you may be moving, renovating your home, or expanding your family, mending relationships within the family, or setting boundaries, cutting ties, big shifts within the home and family life, but also new developments around your past, letting go of some of your past, I think can also be taking place. With the South Node in the 10th, there's some change in your public facing persona, your reputation. Maybe it's a career change. Maybe it's a style makeover. Maybe it's just wanting to show up in the world in a different way, or releasing certain people's expectations and approvals. I think especially when it comes from family, that's something that I think a lot of us just it's ingrained in our subconscious, wanting approval from our family, of course. And so that could be kind of a big theme. With Venus retrograde in Leo in the 8th house, that also kind of brings up relationship reviews and values, the way we are valued. And also that could be a very it could be a sexy time, but it could be a deepening of relationships as well. So if, no shame or shade to the Capricorns, but if you have been like a little guarded and more, difficult to share some of your vulnerabilities, that's a really powerful time to tap into your emotional side.
You are so spot on with everything you said because my sister's Capricorn rising, and she literally sold her place, her home, her apartment, and got a new job. So she's doing like her dream job of being a holistic nurse. She actually has Venus in Leo in the 8th. So she's having a Venus return this summer. And I literally said, like, this is sex magic. I said, do some sex magic to manifest something.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my God.
And another thing you said was I told her too, because like she always did things because she wanted the approval of our parents. Like she was that child who like became a nurse and who got her apartment because that's like what our parents wanted. And I said, this is the year where you like release all of that and just do what Sarah wants to do. Like you just do what you want to do and not what your parents want to do. Because I do have to say, I think like out of all the signs, I think Capricorn has had the worst run of it since like 2018 when we had that eclipse, Cancer Capricorn eclipse, and then you had that cluster of Capricorn planets going through your first house,
They've
and
been
just
going
and Pluto going through your, I think you've just had enough.
through it.
So take advantage of Jupiter going into your fifth house and like have a lot of fun. And like Taurus, you've had Taurus in the North Node in Taurus in your fifth house now. And I think it's just a time for you to do Taurus things, like eat great food, like have a lot of good sexy time, like indulge,
Yeah.
like live the good life. You deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a beautiful way to weave in that transit. And I think with these major changes in your house of like public self and your private self, there's going to be major shifts around your finances and your self-worth too, the way that you see yourself in the world. And that is going to kind of show up when Pluto enters Aquarius in March in your second house. So you could be gaining more, financial worth and stability, or you could be facing the ways in which you're too hard on yourself.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Just the thing with Saturn entering Pisces in the third house is a house of rituals in ancient astrology. And it is in modern astrology the house of social media and media. And Saturn being your ruler, it's very important that you focus on what Saturn's doing. And in Pisces, I was saying that maybe you're going to be like like a wise leader in your community, or even to like show up on social media and talk about like all the like things that you've learned during these like rough transits that you've had.
Mm-hmm.
You learned something.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
The card that I got is Two of Pentacles, which is a Jupiter and Capricorn card, which is so on point with what we were talking about. This is expanding who you are. And so Jupiter and Capricorn, the Two of Pentacles, a lot of people say that this card is about balance, but for me, this is about change and expansion in a Capricorn way, so in a very real, tangible way. And Capricorn is you. And so I think what you were saying about the North Node and South Node entering your angular houses of career and home is going to make you shift what you feel you're worthy of. Second house, Pluto in Aquarius. And I think I know all the Capricorn risings I know are super abundant anyway, but I feel like you're even going to expand more in some way. How do you feel about this card?
I think it's not necessarily about, yeah, kind of like balance, but making sure you have a flow, everything in a row, right? Like, it's time management, multitasking. And that makes me think of Saturn entering your third house. Maybe your schedule is going to get a lot busier. Maybe you're going to have a lot more responsibilities on your plate. So being able to, with precision, commit to certain things without pulling the wrong Jenga block.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Love it.
Alrighty.
We're almost done.
We're almost done. Aquarius rising. Okay. Pluto.
This is another sign that I'm like, wow.
So yeah, Aquarius rising.
Are you okay?
Yeah. Let's talk about it. Saturn left your first house. That's amazing. We're so happy for you, since, March 2020 is when Saturn entered that sign. And it's been Saturn in the first house can test everything in your life in different ways. And it's entering your second house. And now you have Pluto entering your first house. So I think that this 20-year transit is they're going to be no duh, but they're going to be completely different people by the end of it. It's going to force you to face your shadows. It's going to force you to release the coping mechanisms of detaching. It's going to force you to do face your reality in a way that you maybe haven't wanted to. Your fears are entering your first house. You have to face them and interact with them like head on. And you're having a lot of angular transits as well because you're a fixed sign. You have 2 of the benefics on your angles, so that is really something to look forward to. Jupiter will be in the 4th house. This can signify and correspond with like one of my good friends is an Aquarius rising, and she's moving to the Portland area, and she's so excited about it. And like when I look at her, I think Portland. My whole life I've been like, why are you here? And I mean, like I love her to pieces, but it's like it could correspond with you moving to a place that just feels like home. Like it feels like you're maybe your surroundings, the people around you feel like family in a really uplifting and exciting way. Venus retrograde in the 7th house, that can have you reviewing and reconsidering some of your contracts, relationships in your life. And it is the most cliche exes coming back. Yeah. You cannot get more. Yeah. And Saturn in Pisces is going to ask you to be a little bit more dedicated, disciplined with your budget. And you know, if you do decide to make a big move, or if you are letting go of certain contracts through the Venus retrograde, that might be a tie in there.
How do you have a Pisces 2nd house? I feel like money would be like, what is money? Right?
Yeah.
Which is so funny because Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, but like having a 2nd house Pisces, I'd be like, money is not real.
That's funny. Yeah.
I had Pluto going through my 1st house in my 20s, and I wasn't as conscious of it at the time, but definitely it was definitely a huge like transitional period for me, because during that time is when I like moved away from my country for the first time and like lived abroad. That was when I went to do grad school in San Diego. It's really like when I kind of like faced all of my fears, because 9/11 happened during that time, I believe. And I was just like, it was like this epiphany, like at any moment you could walk into a building or on a plane and everything could end. And I was like, you need to face all of your fears of like just living life. Why are you going to wait till you're 40? So I literally did everything during that like transit. And obviously mine was in Sagittarius. So it was a lot about like moving away and traveling and going on adventures. But I would say Pluto moving through your 1st house, like you're gonna be a different person. Like you said, you're gonna see yourself in a different way, but you're gonna gain confidence in a way that maybe you didn't before.
Yeah.
Which I feel like you probably already had a taste of that with Saturn going through your 1st house. But Saturn is more maturing, where I think Pluto gives you boldness.
Yes. The courage. Yeah. And then the North Node will be in your 3rd house. The South Node will be in your 9th. That to me is like just shifting of the way you look at the world, shifting of the way that you communicate, that you speak to yourself, skills, things you want to learn and relearn. You know, I think it reminds me of like, I always like to, an affirmation I like to repeat to myself is, I am an eternal student of the universe. We're always learning, we're always growing, we're always evolving. And so holding some compassion for yourself on this journey of life as we grow and mess up and make mistakes and keep learning.
Oh, I love that. The card that I got is the 6 of Wands. And the 6 of Wands is Jupiter in Leo. And when I saw this just now with the butterfly, it's like, you know, Aquarius is a cold air sign. It's like not the sexiest sign. I should know, I have my Venus and Moon there, But with this Venus and Leo in your seventh house, are some of you going to have like a lot of sexy time, maybe?
Yes. And even Jupiter in the fourth feels a little
Yeah.
sexy.
Yeah, because like Venus and Jupiter are both like moist. Ew, I hate that word, but like they're like moist, hot planets.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yes. Nailed it.
And I think like it's gonna like make you feel like good, I think, with
I think the all of the angular action, the Six of Wands to me is a card of success and manifestation and a milestone. And with all of this action in very important parts of your chart, things that you've been hoping for or working towards for a long time will come into fruition.
yes, I agree.
And also, side note, just have to say, my seventh house is Aquarius, and I think you all are just deliciously so mysterious to me because I'm an oversharer. I'm like, hi, let me talk to you. And you all are like so cool, like calm and collected and witty, and yeah.
Thank you. I think my fire placements really do like warm up the cold Aquarius, but I love that about us. One thing I do have to say about Aquarius risings is I heard an astrologer, and I forget who, so please like tag yourself if this is you, said that like we are moving into the Aquarian age. I don't know if you've heard that term. And Pluto, I mean, the Aquarius placements are the ones who are like the way showers of like where, because they're also like precognitive, they like can see the future, I believe, with Aquarius placements. So if you're going to be holding, like if you're going to be the leaders of the next generation, you are going through your initiation right now with Saturn and Pluto going through your first house. It's almost like the universe is like, you're going to be the way showers. Okay, you have to go through your initiation.
Ooh.
If you're going through this hard time right now, just know that it's for a purpose, and that we are all going to be looking up to you to guide us in the future.
And just know the two luckiest planets in the sky are in two of the luckiest houses of your chart. So you got some good coming.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. All right. Grand finale, our sweet Yay. Angel babies. Pisces rising.
Love it.
Saturn will be entering your first house, and this is like a time of maturity. Any illusions that you've had about yourself, ambitions, goals that you're working towards, they're gonna dissolve away, and you're gonna be faced with the harsh truth. It's an important time to focus on your routines and your health. The first house is your physical body, so can health issues come up? Absolutely. Doesn't mean it's the end of the world. No, but to be proactive with this energy, that is something to be cognizant of. I think that I think that Venus in the sixth house, Venus retrograde, I think that's going to be annoying. I'm not going to lie. Okay. I think that you may be dealing with some conflict with someone in your workplace, either like a boss or a colleague, or just someone in your periphery who is kind of obnoxious and annoying. That the sixth house traditionally is a place of strife and conflict, and but with the retrograde process, like it will be for the betterment. Like it will resolve. You just have to wait until Venus turns direct.
Yeah. It's also the house of known enemies, right? And like the 12th is the hidden enemies.
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe some hiccups there. Oh, but it could also be a really great time to change up your beauty routine.
Yeah.
Kind of going from a glamour magic vibe. And thinking about love as like daily acts of service. Like, how do you express love if you are in a partnership and you've been in a partnership for a while? Reconnecting with the little things about your person or people that really fill your heart. Jupiter in the third house is making me feel like I want to learn everything. I want to go everywhere. I want to travel. It's the house of short distance travel. So it could just be like jetting across the country. But picking up in your schedule. If you are a writer or creative person, this could correlate with like more publishing opportunities, or sharing your voice, expressing your voice on a like larger scale.
Mm-hmm. And it's your ruler, so it's a big deal. So all of your energy is being focused on the third house.
And let's see, Pluto in Aquarius entering the 12th. That to me is like having a 12th house that's ruled by a Saturn sign makes me feel like, for as spiritual and emotional as Pisces risings may be, there can and accessing part of their subconscious can be difficult. I think with Pluto going in there, it's going to really stir up your desire to acknowledge what's been buried and kind of just sitting in your subconscious and kind of clear out what no longer serves you.
Yeah, I think having a fixed air sign in your 12th house is like trying to break through hard ice. It's like the 12th house also speaks about like self-sabotaging behaviors and thoughts and self-undoing, and fixed air is like in your thoughts. So I think doing Plutonian things during this transit, like getting into the occult, getting into mysticism, doing like shadow work and things like that to really tap into your mind, and like the things that you're playing on repeat are going to help, because those are things that are so fixed that it's like hard to break that apart.
Yeah. I think recording affirmations and playing them as you fall asleep and right once you wake up, when your brain is in that theta state, could be very helpful and healing. So
I love that. Yeah, because my ruler is in the 12th and it's a fixed water sign, and I literally have subliminals playing while I'm sleeping.
Yes, I do it too. I love it. It must be your Jupiter's in the 12th.
It must be. And I'm like, my sister was like, she heard it one night and she's like, what the heck, Laura?
I love it. I love it. So give it a try. That should help some of the energies that are coming up. And grand finale is the North Node and the South Node. So the North Node will be in your 12th house and the South Node will be in your 8th. Or no. The North Node will be in your 2nd and the South Node in the 8th. And that on a practical level brings up finances, shifts in finances, and also maybe gaining more confidence, right? On a modern level.
Yeah. The 2nd house is like your stuff, like what you earn and your money and your like stuff. The 8th house is other people's stuff. So like, because I have my North and South Node in these axes, and it's all about understanding like the tangibles and intangibles of life. It's like how you find yourself worthy, then other people will find you worthy. It's what you find like your services or your worth is, then that's what you will charge other people. So it is a house of worth, but also money, because they're tied.
I also have my nodes on that axis, and I think a big thing with the North Node in the 2nd house is going to be around self-sufficiency. So if you are relying on others in some way, trusting yourself, knowing that you have the skills and resources to make things happen, I'm really owning that.
Yeah, it's a very triggering place to have the notes.
Ugh, tell me about it.
Worst.com, because you have to like trust yourself but also trust others, and it's this delicate balance of like knowing when you're being too codependent and when like you can trust others to like and ask for help. And sometimes you don't know which is what, but yeah, but it's worth it.
I think that is one final important point to make, is like releasing the fear around asking for help and support.
Yes,
will also probably come up.
Totally.
All right, who'd they get?
8 of Wands. Queen of
Ooh,
Wands speaks swiftness,
move.
and it's Mercury in Sag. So I love this card because it's like when you plant seeds of intention and like nothing is happening, you know, like what the heck is my manifestation working? And then all of a sudden you like surrender and then all of them come back to you. And it's like
Mhm.
all 8 seeds are
Yeah,
like rushing towards you. It's like what they say, like with the moment you surrender, your manifestations start chasing you.
yeah.
So I think like, you know, I feel like Pisces risings are just the dreamiest and like they're just in their own dimension anyway. But I think something is coming true, something is coming back to you.
And that feels really aligned with Jupiter entering the third house. Like there's a lot of movement and energy, like we talked about. So yeah, keep us posted, Pisces rising.
I think overall everybody got super positive cards and everybody's 2023 is going to be huge, epic.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good year. So thank you for joining us on this episode, and we can't wait to see what's next for everyone.
Bye.
Bye.